The mission of Phius and this conference is to make Passive House mainstream. And all of us started doing Passive House Accelerator happy hours because we couldn't help ourselves. We had to find each other and be together.
They're only mistakes if we let them happen. Things are supposed to be performing the way they're designed.
It was builders and architects and engineers all talking about kind of what you could do. How does the process go better?
Welcome to the Passive House podcast, brought to you by Passive House Accelerator, a catalyst for zero carbon building. For news, inspiration, and connections from all flavors of Passive House, check out passivehouseaccelerator.com. Sign up to receive regular updates about events, get your questions answered, and contribute to the community dialogue. There's loads of free information for experienced professionals and people just starting out on their Passive House journey. We hope to see you at one of our weekly Passive House Accelerator live webinars. You can also check out our Reimagined Buildings YouTube channel for some great inspiration for both building new or renovating. In the meantime, here's this week's Passive House podcast. Welcome back to the Passive House podcast. I'm Matthew Cutler-Welsh, and I'm very pleased to be here in Houston, Texas with the crew. We're all here. We're going to go around the circle and everyone's going to do a little bit of a overview of their takeaways and their key learning from this awesome event. And it's just so great to be here with everyone in person. So we're going to get right into it. But before we do, Zach, tell us who we've got to thank.
Yeah, a big thank you to our sponsors that make everything possible at Passive House Accelerator, including the Passive House podcast. So thank you to our founding sponsors, 475 High Performance Building Supply, Baxt Ingwe Architects, Glavel, Minutair, Mitsubishi Electric Train HVAC US, Partel, Rockwell North America, Stocorp, and Zola Windows. Thanks also to our champion sponsors, Bewizo, Gradient, Icon Windows and Doors, Intelligent Membranes, PH Air Seal, Proseco, and Source 2050. And a big thank you to our stakeholder partner, NYSERDA, the New York State Energy Research and Development Authority.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, let's get straight into it. And I'm going to pass the microphone on.
Hi, everyone. This is Beverly Craig from Mass CEC. I was really excited at this conference to hear Phius announce that they are creating a new category of professional and trainings that is the introduction kind of entry point for Passive House, the Passive House Associate, sort of like a green associate under LEED. Think of that. And also, I'm really excited to hear they are also adding trainings related to trades. They're going to have an envelopes trades, like an in-person kind of training, and then also mechanical systems one. To me, those are really super important and well needed, and great to hear that they're starting to meet that training need.
In terms of the work that you're doing in Massachusetts, like how do you see the associate kind of designation as well as those the trade specialty certifications being helpful in this massive scale up that's going on in Passive House? Well, we've helped make happen.
We have a lot of new teams,
yeah.
And honestly, sometimes architects aren't willing to go through the whole CPHC, but we want them to know enough. And so the Passive House Associate, I think, would be a really good intro before you're diving into your first project, even though you have a very educated other teams, so that or other team members. So it might be like the structural engineer or someone who doesn't want to do 40 hours before even taking the CPHC class. They don't have that much time. So to me, that's important. Trades, we all know, we don't have enough upskilling of existing people in these fields, and there is some specialty knowledge needed. And I love that they're splitting it envelope because it's very different skills and putting in windows and carpentry versus the mechanicals. And we need both. And honestly, the mechanicals to me has been the weakest point in Massachusetts. So I would put that highest on the list for them to offer in person in Massachusetts.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Michael Ingwe from Baxt Ingwe Architects, Passive House Accelerator, and Source 2050. I think one of the things that I enjoyed most about the conference as a whole is who was here. And it was about 30% new people. And it's been one of my biggest challenges as I go to these conferences, to have 30% new coming in versus just everyone seeing each other every Time We Go is super interesting, and it shows you the level of interest in Houston, but also they were coming from everywhere. I also really enjoyed a number of the sessions, two of which I was in. I enjoyed hearing just how far past everybody's going from, is it possible? Can you do it? How do you do it? It was way beyond that. It's tweaking it. It's tweaking the client experience. We were in a hootenanny today where it was builders and architects and engineers all talking about kind of what you could do. How does the process go better? How does it go faster? How do you start with a client? Tim McDonald, again, made his great point of starting with, what am I using? Gas or electric? Make your decision on the mechanicals from there. Okay. Then, the user point of, that Craig Stevenson was describing, what does my thermostat look like? And then from there, just moving on. And it's both wonderful for people who've been doing it for a while, but these 30% of these new people who are coming into this, these are golden. These are dropping the hurdle to the floor, and it just lets them start on a right foot, and pretty exciting.
Yeah, you mentioned the term hootenanny, which is a kind of a PhiusCon
yes.
jargon, which it refers to like a panel of kind of peers, and that hootenanny had there were 10 of you, right? Both builders and designers, kind of calling to each other to task and just having a lot of fun as well. But and you mentioned that a third, your sense was that about a third of the people are new. Another thing that kind of related to that was the statistic that there were over 500 new Phius certified professionals in the last year, which I thought was really encouraging as well. I mean, obviously we needed to be faster and faster, but 500 is quite a few. So,
it's huge. And coming back to the hootenanny, what's fun about them is they really are set up to have a really interesting conversation between people. Not everybody agreed with everything each one was saying. So what's great about that is not only are you leaving with the golden nuggets of information about what you should do first, second, third, fourth, people didn't agree with it. And so the other, the contractor saying this, the architect saying that, and very often, right in front of everybody, we're like, okay, well, what if we did this? So I left with something great too. So it's just kind of interesting where we're going. This is just a totally different place from where we've been. This is now, how do you make the process better? And how do you go way beyond? It's where we should be, but it's also exciting for anybody coming into it. It's a good time.
Awesome.
I'm Sean Sainamore from Vancouver, BC with Clay Construction, and the builder's perspective, I guess, is where I'm always looking at things. And being here, you're always looking for one nugget, and I feel like I'm walking away 4 or 5 solid nuggets to take back. And I'm always looking at how do we grow this whole group of people, a 10x type mentality, and so it's all about the language. And then also, from a builder's perspective, how am I going to go back and get the rest of the team on, the specialists, the ones that don't really care about passive house. And so using that term, stealth passive house, which I always had to, take that one term and made that jargon really boring, and being able to just say something that slides into it is really important for me. And also, we're here at the conference in the hotel room, but the first day started with the site tours. And so we got to see Sai Safi's building. And so you actually get to see the details, and you're seeing, 40 or 50 people, see the blower door turn on. You're they're getting oh, that's what that machine does. And that's what it looks like. And even at that point, that building wasn't ready for a blower door, but they got to see it. And they got to experience what that occurs, and the work that needs to be done. So, we talk about test and verifying. So taking some of the language that I've learned here from the builder's perspective, taking it back to the specialist that I need to do. And one thing too is this is all about copying, and copying is a form of flattery. And we just need to just share, and just the whole collaboration that we're here for, but also everyone else here. It's just really exciting to be, always in the thrill of the excitement of each other, be inspired, and then take that inspiration home and sharing that with the rest of our community.
Can you say more about the stealth passive house?
What I like about the stealth passive house is sometimes people don't get passive house, so they don't like the term, but it's that creative way of how Mike talks about. He doesn't talk about the passive house principles, he talks about the benefits. And so in my mindset of having that, I want to be sneaky with how to get Passive into the conversation without, talking about, the principles or getting into that nerdy, geeky stuff that we love, but just getting it to where people really embrace the benefits of it. And so kind of that mindset, I think, is great for some of us that, are diehards in this, but you get into a room where, they might not have that excitement of Passive House, but just using that mindset, I'm going to sneak Passive House into the conversation today by being stealthy. And I think that's where I like, it's that mindset of, I'm going to be sneaky, but proactive and right to the punch with what we need to do. So look out, folks. Stealth Passive House is coming to Vancouver.
Awesome.
Hi, I'm Shannon Pendleton from Sanderson Sustainable Design. I also co-host on Construction Tech with Sean and Mark and Kevin. And this year I joined Source 2050, our sister company, and I came to Passive House Conference this year from the expo side as well as the attendee or the speaker side. And the reason I love PhiusCon every year is because I think that this entire organization has the ability to evolve. And they are very, very hard on themselves to evolve. And they criticize their own methods in order to elevate their practice. And you can see it in the way their standards have changed over time, the way they've developed different calculators and tools for people to use, including the newest ASHRAE 227, which I know we're going to talk more about. But beyond that, as an example, it seems to really lead the way for the rest of us to do the same thing inside of our own practices. So I see everyone really understanding how our workflows are broken as an industry, whether we're builders or designers, manufacturers, or even just homeowners and students. And understanding where our workflow is not serving ourselves and our clients, because we are serving an industry, we are serving people, and we're bringing them better buildings. So that was a great lesson, because understanding that construction administration, for me personally as a sole proprietor, doing mostly single family, but really understanding all building typologies now after years with the accelerator, is to see where construction administration, which is often something we just don't think about until we have to, till the builder has to get on board, or till the manufacturer or specification or pricing has to occur, and all of the funding that goes into that part of the process in order to get your energy model where it needs to be, where your materials and pricing and understanding of how you're going to get this stuff and put it together, do your sequencing has to be. Those have to happen earlier in our process. And so having that understanding of construction administration scope go into your design development proposals. And so I thought that was a really big takeaway across a lot of people's understanding, not only in the sessions, where people examined it from a systems thinking or a strategic thinking, but on the expo floor, when they would come up and see us and they would be like, oh my gosh, I've been spending so much time searching for these things. This is incredible to have all of these vendors here sharing all of this knowledge and being able to touch the products and hold the products, or see that I have a way I can get them online after this. And then lastly, for the emerging professionals and how they're evolving, because they're holding our feet to the fire. I saw some great presentations by some young emerging professionals who Elka knows very well and is mentoring, actually. But they're asking us not only to front load CA, construction administration, but they were calling for the demise of 2D details, because they said that's where architects and designers hide, and where we lose the ability to understand the way things go together. And so if we have a 3D model, that's wonderful. We understand a lot of form. We understand a lot of relationships. But we don't have to look at the trouble spots. And no one ever has to see our 3D model. Show it to the client when it looks good, put it away when it doesn't. But construction documents are still 2D. And in order to figure out those tricky details, sometimes we can't even conceive of them in 2D. But once we try to build them in 3D in the computer, like a digital twin, and they were calling it a nugget, which I know you were using that term. You said nuggets. They're calling them nuggets, and they're little bespoke 3D details that allow us to incorporate everything so that when we get to pricing, when we get to actually building this building, we have a very clear understanding of how it goes together. So it was great to be called out by the younger generation and urged to do better.
I'm Kevin Brennan from Brennan Installation and Airtightness, as well as a happy co-host of Passive House Construction Tech Live with my good friends. It's great to see everyone here live and in person at a conference. Yeah. Texas is awesome. I'm here for a good time, not a long time. So looking forward to the after party tonight with everyone. But besides that, today's learning objectives, I enjoyed the mini keynote by Mark Rosenbaum about thermal energy storage. That was very interesting to me, and how we have such energy efficient buildings. Now we can do amazing things with all the extra energy we're producing. It was intriguing. It was thought provoking. And, Mark being a pioneer, in the industry, it's just very interesting for me to know where his next steps are. I had a great session that I wound up going into with the Raiders Roundtable, the Raiders and Verifiers Roundtable. They spoke my language in that testing and verification and that leadership that you have to bring the construction trades along with you. I was like, I have those conversations too. I get frustrated with leaky ducts, and the message in the room was showing people how to do it, but not only just do it, but show them how and why, and point them to the science and the reasons behind where we're doing it. And some of my skills on site as a construction professional is breaking things down and being almost like a coach and pointing out, this is why we do it, this is how we do it, and this is why it doesn't work. And then trying to get them to that level of excellence and airtightness, mechanical decisions, and try and inspire the trades to be the top of the pyramid of energy efficiency and really go for super buildings. And I was inspired by that. It's my first Phius conference, but it's great to see the standard being standardized by ASHRAE as a unified building standard. I feel like it's bringing everyone together and with the same message, and I'm proud to be a part of it. And I had a great time.
And that's where I think that stealth passive house is. We all love passive house, and now it's being imposed in the code. In Vancouver, we've got the BC Energy Step Code. It's passive house. The tier code in Canada, it's passive house. ASHRAE, it's a passive house. That's exciting to see all of our efforts. Yes, maybe being disguised, but it's there.
And it's making buildings work and function. Airtight buildings, everything's airtight. Everything adjoins to it. We're not allowing holidays or things to go under the radar. They're only mistakes if we let them happen. Things are supposed to be performing the way they're designed. I was also inspired in the trade show floor by the innovations in the blow-a-door manufacturers. Their new manometer was kind of nerdy and good to see. It was also great to see the new insulation product on the market with the wood fiber. Dr. Joe telling us that wood is good, it comes from trees, was very good and inspiring. But he also broke down the really technical parts of, relative humidity and how wood reacts in each environment and how nobody understands why, and you accept that. But yeah, that's all I got, I think.
Did you see the expo floor mushroom wall with the hemp, where you can grow your own wall assembly in 2 weeks?
What kind of mushrooms?
So Houston, we have a solution. Is how it all kicked off. My name is Mark Willey, Passive House Accelerator. These are amazing people, and I know you are too because you're tuning in. It kicked off locally. It kicked off with a gentleman from the city council by the name of David Robertson. He's not the basketball player you're thinking of, but he really welcomed us all in. It was followed up by some incredible ladies. There was Shelley, there was Yasmin, there was Shannon, Cynthia, and Nicole, followed by Liddell and Tom. They're all local folks, really ushering it forward for us. We felt welcomed. I was a little bit laughing at the beginning because I was introduced to Passive House as a way of putting a hairdryer in a cold building, and that would make it all work. And here we are in Houston, like we can do things with buildings in this environment. Like it was a call to action by the incredible folks at Phius, right? And these folks locally ushered, folks with a PH, ushered in the conversation for us to understand their daily lives. From growing up, their environments in a crowded multifamily building, to their aspirations of their children in a really good environment based on their home. And that's how it started for me. So I'm already like got goosebumps thinking that again. Taking it forward, my favorite part's the expo hall because I could play with things. Booth by booth, person by person, you'll see that over the course of all these episodes that are rolling out that are so special. So I don't want to tip my hat to them. But fast forward, there's a wrap-up by Joe Seabrook, and he's iconic for all of us. So Joe is talking, and Kevin, of course, mentioned some of Joe's wizardry is by getting you to pay attention and then turning you on your head as to why you should pay attention. He's uncovering things in 1983 that our standard practice is not doing today. He was advanced on code before most of us were born. Not me, but most of us. So there, that's a little Joe laugh from Zach. Beautiful. And the interesting thought about Joe wrapping it up is Building Science Summer Camp. Katrin wrapped it up. And when you see this relationship, you see how much they work their careers, their lives, their passions, their staff, their projects on their peers. And they feed off of each other because, let's face it, they don't sleep. All they do is pour their passions into this thing called life. It is their existence, and they demonstrate that. So Joe delivers that. Katrin Klingenberg wraps it up. It's magical. You can't feel it when you're not here at these conferences. You can't feel it when you don't attend these incredible online occurrences that happen so well. But when you engage in a podcast, in a live, in an expo, you can. And that's the magic that Joe and Katrin have brought for all of us. And as we are out there getting our own relationships so we could be the Joe and Katrin, and we can have that relationship. I see it at lunch. I see it at dinner. I see it at the local hotspots when we're all still swirling around. That's incredible. And I'm so thankful to see this massive team from Phius be so big and rolling out things that I thought was going to happen when I met Kevin years and years ago, right? And it's at a pulse right now. So jump in line, because we're going to see some of you folks in Philly.
I'm so excited to see everybody in Philly next year. That announcement knocked me sideways in the best way. But Mark, you hit the nail on the head talking about the community. The mission of Phius and this conference is to make Passive House mainstream. And all of us started doing Passive House Accelerator happy hours because we couldn't help ourselves. We had to find each other and be together. And when we get to see each other at this venue, this is the one I look forward to the most every year because it's so big and I know so many people. And in the beginning, it was the experts and the people who wanted to be the experts, who looked up to them, the Passive House heroes and like the rest of us. And now there is so much more that's mainstream. There are so many layers and levels of expertise and knowledge. And then the practice has just changed and evolved so much that when we go out after the events, after the sessions, we're all talking about them still. We're all so excited about them. And we're so inviting to anyone new. We want to share it. It's like having a new family member that came to the table at Thanksgiving, and you get to like, look at what we got. Somebody brought a dish of this, and somebody brought a dish of that. And
It's actually the gift that Joe has done again and again, and it's information transfer. He will tell you it is your responsibility to share what you learn. And I hope everyone embraces that in their daily routine.
I think it's great they mentioned they're up to 30 million square feet passive house built. I mean, 10 years ago, I was excited. Wow, they hit 1 million square feet. Now they're at 30 million square feet. I mean, that's exponential growth. And just to hear about the future of passive house, awesome.
I'm Ilka Cassidy with Holzraum System, and I'm also co-host of the Passive House Accelerator podcast. So you called it mainstream, going mainstream with Passive House, and for me, it feels like everyone is ready to burst the bubble. So far, I feel like going to the conferences was always this really nice, comfortable bubble to go into, talk, learn from each other, and we did learn from each other. And it feels like now it has changed because we know we can do it. We know how to do it. It's not a question anymore. Sure, we still learn from each other, but I feel the confidence level has just risen enormously. And we're all ready to just go out and bring it to everyone. And I think my biggest takeaway was really that there are people out there, a lot of people out there that want the same. Like we all want the same. It's just about using the right language to communicate and come on the same kind of, we have to agree on what the goal is, and then we have to pursue it. It doesn't matter what it's called. So, and I feel like that is something new to me, that everyone is kind of walking away from that bubble that's Passive House. It's called step code, it's called stretch code, it's ASHRAE 227, and I think it's great. And I'm really, really excited about it because we have to learn who the audience is and talk their language, because otherwise we can't really burst the bubble.
So back to me, Matthew Cutler-Welsh. It's been a real pleasure to be in a warm place, warm and humid, which was why I was very keen to be here, because I come from a fairly warm place, and right next door to New Zealand is an even warmer place, and we're grappling with very similar issues around how to do passive house in warm places, and more importantly, how to do passive house in humid places. So speaking of tours, I got to go on the house tour, which I know a few of us got to go, and I was really blown away once I got inside, in particular, into Jesse Hunt's own, next door to Jesse Hunt's house, because he's built two of them. And fortunately, he ridiculously oversized his plant room, which allowed a busload of people to literally get into his roof and have a look at all the plant up there, which was, a lot of us could have spent a lot longer in there. And it's a great example of just that, just how to do passive house in what is quite a warm and humid environment. The main thing that I took from that was the need to dehumidify separately from air conditioning. And I had heard of people wanting to simplify systems, have this one magic box that did everything, did heating, ventilation, cooling. Sounds awesome. But then it was explained to me, because I asked, why is this box, this dehumidification box, sitting on top of this other box, which is the heating and cooling? Because that heating and cooling box is an air conditioner. And where I come from, a heat pump has a dehumidification mode. So why do you need this extra box? Turns out there's a very good reason for that extra box, and it's to do with the amount of air that you need and just the work required to dehumidify that air, and also in the timing of when you need dehumidification and when heating and cooling is going on. I'm not going to go into the details now because we're probably going to have an episode about that. But the main takeaways for me were that the H and the V and the A, the heating, the ventilation, the cooling, the air conditioning, sometimes they're all together, sometimes they're not. And there are things that are always common. All houses need ventilation, and that's where you've got to start. You've got to start with breathing in holes that are designed to breathe out of, not cracks and holes that you shouldn't be breathing out of, because that's not polite. But then from there, details matter, and details are situational, and everything has to be a little bit different depending on what you're looking for inside and also where your house happens to be. And I think that's still to be explored. And it's great to see people like Jesse and Jesse's builder, who was amazing, figuring that stuff out. Amazing to be in one of the first certified duplex houses, I think, in the Houston area. So kudos to them. I know it's been a big, long journey for them. And just a really great example. So I'm excited to see more learning, more products, and more training to solve that problem of how we do passive house in warm, humid environments.
Yeah, well, I mean, basically, the main takeaway I have is that we are at this place where we're poised to see passive house truly going into the mainstream. And I think that's a theme that has kind of permeated our conversation so far. But there are a couple of ways that is the case. And one of the biggest, I think, to look forward to is this whole ASHRAE 227P, which sounds incredibly boring when we say ASHRAE 227P. But it's super exciting, and that because we know how powerful policy is to drive passive house adoption, and Bev here is, among a team of people in Massachusetts who's responsible for one of the biggest, probably the biggest passive house policy success story in the U.S. And that's the stretch code and the adoption of passive house, both VS and PHI passive house into that stretch code. So when the VS has this great graph that shows where passive house is happening, like what states square footage of passive house is happening, and there are three big spikes. The biggest spike is Massachusetts, and the second biggest, a close second, is New York, and then followed by Pennsylvania, and then actually a somewhat distant fourth is Connecticut. Yeah. But all of those states have policy that's driving adoption. And so, I think this community has been hard at work at creating proof of concept around the country of passive house. And we got to see some of that in Texas now. That proof of concept is super important because it makes it possible for policy makers and policy advocates to point to real examples on the ground so that they can be successful in advocating for policy. But when we get to the level of having a building standard that has been developed by ASHRAE, just dedicated to passive building, it's a totally different realm. So because that makes it easy for the jurisdictions around the country and frankly in New Zealand and all around the world to adopt passive building as code or as stretch code. And so I think that, we're going to see similar kinds of spikes happen once that comes down the pike. And I think we should say, I think my understanding is that 227P, right now it's in kind of, there's a review draft out and there's a comment period that's about to close. And then another more, I think, intensive comment period that will happen after that. And the development probably will take another year or two. This effort was spearheaded by Graham Wright of PhiusCon. So PhiusCon, this began as a PhiusCon endeavor, bringing it to ASHRAE. That's my understanding anyway. And but it is a consensus-based process that has included both PhiusCon and PHI, as well as a bunch of engineers who are affiliated with ASHRAE. they have been at work for years and years now, like going through and figuring out how to take these ideas from passive building and make it into a normative, meaning, I think that was a term, normative, which means that it's not, you should do this or you might do that. It's like, you shall do this. Like, language that's easy for code officials to actually say, determine whether you've done it or not, right? And so it's normative, it's consensus based. It's really exciting. And the fact that we're seeing, Phius and PHI at the same table with a consensus based process means that we're evolving into kind of a new landscape, I think, in a couple of years. So I'm grateful for Phius's leadership on that. I'm grateful for all the work that everybody on that committee has done. And I just can't wait to see what impact that will make. We're basically moving from boutique to mainstream.
Exactly. And I got the opportunity to talk to Graham, right? Honestly, where would we be without them?
Yeah.
I thought that many times during this conference, the leadership that they've created out of almost nothing to bring this knowledge to a boutique environment where we all have these specialized certifications and we can, make it part of our identities and make it part of our services and specialize and enjoy sharing something so powerful with people that saves them money, helps the planet, preserves our buildings, preserves the future of our kids. And yet what ASHRAE 227 is doing is taking that and giving it to everyone through code. You don't need a specialized CPHC anymore. But we'll end up getting tools and calculators and ways to incorporate these things into our practices so we can then address the even bigger elephants in the room.
Yeah, and I wanted to follow up on the next generation conversation because that's something that was very, very impactful today too, as Shannon already mentioned. And I think that's something that we all have to take away, that the next generation, they have to be excited about this as well. And, seeing them being mentored. And the big thing is that they felt empowered. And that made them want to do the next step. So I think that should be our goal, to empower the next generation to move this forward.
And along with that session, Ryan and Stefan and the other presenter, whose name escapes me, they're doing a zero energy airplane hangar for electric planes that take off vertically. And they could only share as much as is publicly available because of the NDAs. But the next presenter was sharing two-way charging, which is going to be available to everyone now. And that makes nanogrids and microgrids and communities empowered in a way that, along with passive houses, in a way that we've never seen before. So we're really on the edge of something brand new.
Yeah, one of the things that really struck me at the conference was just the reminder that it's really wonderful and truly important to work with people that you really love working with. And we had a whole conference full of people who are collaborative, who are interesting. You had many audience members who knew as much, if not more, than some of the presenters, and everybody was interacting, and you really felt it in the room. And I actually just want to take this time to thank everybody who's on the Passive House Accelerator team. It is such an inspiring, addictive experience to be around everyone here. I mean, everyone's involved in so many different things. You bring so much to the table, so much energy, and it would not be as much fun if I didn't really enjoy really working with everybody. So thank you.
You're here.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. So fun with a PH, though.
Yes.
Just to be clear.
When we're talking about, how things are moving forward, in one of the sessions, I was thinking about the tipping point, like how we're summiting. And I think when we looked at this, we're at the bottom of the mountain, but we've been climbing that mountain so fast that tipping point, I think, is coming sooner than we think. And we may not, we're going to probably hit that tip and keep going because the momentum that is happening here and, how things are accelerating. It's phenomenal.
I heard the word accelerator.
So we're going to continue to build forward, and we know how to spell forward, right?
The one thing I'd like to say is all these new areas with Passive House, they're getting projects. I got into Passive House because of projects. I could go see them. I went to Passive House days. I nerded out and I was like, wow, they're really doing this. I was just a kid that knew how to use a blow-a-door that always acts like, what's the tightest building you've ever built? And I got to see the details and was like, I can do this. We can do this. I can tell people how to do this. I faked it to make it and trained a bunch of people and got the message across. But the raters that are needed in those little pockets, they already have the blow-a-doors. They know the building science. They need projects and they need to be exposed to them. And they need to know that there's a market to do great, not just good work, to do great work, to inspire people to do better, to put the components together, that they're really, I get excited working on Passive House because you're getting a team to do something that isn't very often, that you're shooting for excellence and everyone's putting their maximum effort into it. And it's rewarding beyond that, and it's rewarding to be a part of this group and see you all in person, not in a Zoom.
Well said, Kevin. And I think we've alluded a couple times to the interviews that we've been doing over the last couple of days. So we're rolling out a whole bunch of bonus episodes of the Passive House podcast, thanks to generous support from Zola Windows. And this group here has been conducting those interviews. So you have a lot to look forward to in terms of gaining some insights and knowledge from the thought leaders that have been here at the conference. So, and to echo Michael's sentiment, thank you for all of that work. And it's an honor to be working with you guys.
To Passive House.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, team. I'd also like to just acknowledge Mary, who's unfortunately had to shoot off early. And she, I think she might have been the overachiever for the...
I think you'll hear a lot of Mary on the bonus episodes. Yeah, it's exciting.
You'll hear plenty from Mary and all the fantastic guests that she managed to cajole into corners and get bonus episodes. So enjoy those. But until then, thank you, everyone. Great to see you all here in person. And we'll be back again next week on the Passive House Podcast.